What's the one big score that keeps Selina Kyle up at night? Well, let's hop into the pages of Batman One Bad Day Catwoman issue number 1 and find out together, shall we? So then, as we join this brand new WILLOW WILSON one-shot, we hear Catwoman in her internal monologue speaking about the past and how it always has a funny habit of biting you in the ass, which is why you should really handle it now. What inspired these feelings in Catwoman all of a sudden? Well, today is the day that Selina undertakes maybe her most personal heist to date, and the timing couldn't be better as a massive wealth inequality protest is happening right now outside the very auction house that she plans to rob. Wealth and the haves and have-nots actually end up being a major theme in this story. Selina basically says she plans to never be a have-not ever again, and she's personally fine with there being rich people because they're so great to rob. Now, what exactly is it that Catwoman plans to steal this time around? Well, it's a special brooch, one valued at almost $30,000, which certainly doesn't sound like much if you're a super thief like Catwoman, but this one is special because it actually belonged to Selina's mother. In a flashback, we see Selina's mother forced to pawn her beloved family heirloom one day just to try and make that week's rent. The pawnbroker didn't understand the value of the brooch and assumed that it must be some kind of fake. Because of that, he greatly underpaid Selina's mom, and we can see the embarrassment and trauma of that day is something that Selina has been carrying around with her for years. Again, a big theme of this story is worth, and especially self-worth. Hell, Selina basically comes out and says that she's not stealing the brooch for herself, she's stealing it to avenge her family and maybe to have an excuse to talk to her estranged sister Maddie again. Yes, that's right everyone, Catwoman has a sister. It doesn't come up all the time, but she does. I'm certain you also have family you don't talk about. As while casing the auction house, Selina ends up meeting the very eccentric director of the whole operation. Her name is Vivian Page, and she's actually able to share with Catwoman the true story behind the brooch and why it's worth so much now. Apparently, it was crafted in Paris during the Nazi occupation in World War II. The reason the bird is in a cage is meant to represent a kind of protest on the side of the jeweler who made it. So in many ways, the piece itself isn't valuable, it's the story behind it that's valuable. A story that a bunch of art aficionados with nothing better to do are willing to open their wallets and pay through the nose for just to say that they own said story. Selina sheds a small tear over the story, but of course she's only interested in stealing the brooch, and to do so she dresses up like a clumsy server and pockets her prize while everyone else tries to clean up a mess she made. Again, kind of interesting that Selina, in her tunnel vision to steal the brooch, ends up having to screw over a bunch of poor working stiffs who were just trying to do their jobs, serving a bunch of wealthy jerks their food. The heist is a success, but when Catwoman tries to reach out to her sister Maddie, she learns very quickly that, well, she doesn't have the same stake in the brooch she does. In fact, it represents a very dark time in her past that she would rather forget. And no, the irony isn't lost on me at all that Selina is living in a nice apartment while her sister tries to grind out a living in a soul-crushing 9-to-5 with customers who seem to hate her for no reason. Seeing as she hit the wall with her sister, Catwoman plans to sell the brooch off herself anyway on the black market, only to learn from her fence that, get this, turns out the brooch is actually a fake. But wait, how can that be? The lady told her a whole story and it was so grandiose, unless she pocketed the real one herself, right? This has to be some sort of thief versus thief warfare going on. Now that this caper has become an even more personal battle of thieves versus thieves, Selina decides to return to the auction house later that night to find Vivian Page, only to discover that that's not actually her real name. This person is a con woman and a chameleon who is able to move through the world basically unseen until right now. Well, that's not 100% true. One person has been paying attention to her a lot recently, Batman. As it turns out, this person has been defrauding the entire Gotham art world for years now. Batman had almost made a case against her, but now with Catwoman involved, he knows full well that this is going to get really difficult because it is so deeply personal. Batman also knows better than to try and stop Selina when she has her mind set to something, and because of that, a confirmation is set between the two. So what exactly is this Vivian Page woman's deal? Well, first off, she has superpowers, being faster and stronger than the average person. She also sold that fake brooch to Selina's mother originally. Selina's mother just kind of made up the story about it being a beloved family heirloom, and well, that myth kind of took on a life of its own after a while. But why, you might be wondering? Well, for the same reason that the Riddler tells riddles or Two-Face flips a coin. It's all an obsession for her. In fact, her codename is the Forger. She spent years actively making fake works and circulating them throughout the art world so that people could create their own stories and put onto them because, well, what is true value at the end of the day? Value is whatever you make it to be. In a surprise twist of fate too, Catwoman actually loses her fight against the Forger, but her life is ultimately spared because Forger wasn't lying about liking her. In fact, that's the only part of the story she told that was actually real while working this long con. Selina's body and ego might be bruised, but she ultimately did manage to keep the brooch and maybe learn a little important lesson too about what's important in life. The brooch may have been worthless in the literal sense, but in the figurative sense it actually meant a lot to Selina. It represents a bad day that changed her life, but it also represents a happier, better, brighter future that she can maybe hopefully have one day with her sister, who she's sure to call again as the comic comes to a close. And so that was Batman One Bad Day Catwoman, everyone, and while I did ultimately enjoy this one-shot, like the rest of the One Bad Day story so far, I feel like they all could have used so much more time in the creative oven, as it were. There's definitely some great themes and ideas here that Wilson is trying to play around with, you know, what is wealth, both material and personal, and if by being the greatest thief in the DC universe, shouldn't that also mean that Catwoman is also the most materialistic woman in the world, but we also see her more sympathetic, even nostalgic sides in this story? It's certainly something I haven't seen in other superhero stories, and it's something that certainly fits really well for Catwoman, along with several other good ideas in this, but I just felt like none of it really 100% coalesced by the end. That's not to say I didn't enjoy a lot of this book, because I did. It's also gotta be really hard coming in and writing a special one-shot Catwoman story when, unlike all the other villains in the Bad Day series, Catwoman has basically always had a series going for her. So the new idea well is probably a lot more shallow than for someone like, say, the Penguin. I did think Selina's inner monologue was really good here and really well handled by Wilson, and we do get to see some pretty morally gray decisions play out here to remind us that even though Catwoman is usually cast as the hero, she still has super villainous roots, and they still show up every so often. Overall, I'd give this one a 7.5 out of 10, certainly better than a lot of the One Bad Day books I've read so far, but also not the best either.
Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.